Hey there, welcome to the Monday edition of I'm Still Playing. And yes, that's right, I said Monday edition. What I thought I would do going forward is to try to release these on Monday and Thursday in the morning rather than Sunday and Wednesday at 2 a.m. in the morning, which is typically when I finish making these things. So maybe a few of you might be able to pick these things up if I release them at a better time. So I feel like today I have to talk about the broken delve scaling that's happening right now in the War Within. So you'll remember I put up a video a while back talking about Blizzard's issues with scaling when they first released the patch, right? When they first released the expansion, I should say. And this had to do with their open world scaling. And I even talked about how it works and why it's so darn hard to get scaling right. Well, lately Blizzard has been swinging at the fences and mostly missing in terms of trying to get delve scaling correct. So I want to talk about sort of what recently happened, recap, the different things that they did, and then where we are now. And I want to finish with some things that I think might be missing in delves, or some things I think they can do to make the delve experience better. Now, I've mentioned for quite some time now in previous videos that for many of us, delves are the distinguishing feature for this expansion. Right? They are the mechanic that will allow solo players such as myself, or people that only play with one or two friends, to participate in in-game content and also to earn meaningful gear as we participate in that content, which is great, right? So it's really important that Blizzard get this right. Well, it came to light a few days ago by some very savvy posters that that delves scaling, especially between solo and group content, was wildly out of whack, and not in the way that you might expect it to be. It came to light that mob hit points were higher in solo instances than they were in group instances. And the damage values they were doing were higher in solo instances than they were in group instances. So not only was it easier to complete a delve with two people just because you've got two people doing the work, but you literally had mobs that had less hit points and were doing less damage. And this, of course, is exactly not what they want. Blizzard did get on this and posted a hotfix up on September 12th, basically attempting to address these issues that had come to light. All right, so they're like, hey, we fixed a bug causing bosses to scale incorrectly with more players. So rest assured, it was just one bug, folks. It was just this one, and now everything will be fine. We've also increased the health scaling of enemies and delves when grouped with other players. So we're not going to make it easier for your solo players, but we will make it harder for the group players. And then they go on to talk about sort of what their overall goals are with the delves. They mentioned that they've increased Zeknir's influence, fixed a health bar issue, and then they also made one change that really annoyed a lot of people, including my holy priest friend and myself, which is they essentially changed revives remaining to lives remaining, and that anytime you died, the counter for lives remaining would just go down. And they talk about how it was confusing in the way it was before. But mostly what would happen before was that if you had a priest or someone who could resurrect in a group that would resurrect you, it would not cost against your lives remaining. So they essentially nerfed paladins and priests and anyone that could do resurrections by essentially saying that now when you die, you're dead, that your count goes off, and it doesn't matter if you get resurrected or you just release at the checkpoint. But mob scaling's been looked at now, so we all should be good, right? Good to go? No, because this swing of the bat was a foul ball way behind third base. Immediately, there were reports on Reddit of people seeing things like getting nuked by 12 million hit point hits from trash mobs. The official forums themselves lit up like Southern California in the summer with people talking about how terrible mob damage was and mob hit points were, and just the general difficulty of trying to get through any of the delves. My friend and I, we had to abandon Tier 8 altogether that night, which we had previously been able to progress in. And we started, working on a Tier 7 delve, and oh my God, it was an hour and a half brutal slog. We were able to successfully just barely finish it after multiple attempts, and we were both like eye level, I want to say 575 or so. So we were, at about the right level that we thought we should be, but oh my God, it was just a giant slog and hugely unfun. So yeah, it was pretty clear that mob scaling was broken even further than it was before, and even in a worse manner, because now no one could make any progress in delves, or if they did, it was just insanely unfun because of the sheer volume of hit points that most mobs had. So to their credit, Blizzard did again, gather up all the feedback, and they released another round of hotfixes the following day. So the September 13th hotfixes weren't just about delves. They fixed a bunch of miscellaneous stuff with some of the classes, all good stuff, right? But then they got down to the delves, and they're like, hey, yeah, we actually really fucked up. We thought, tried to make this better, but if you went to a delve by yourself versus, going into it with a group, we also moved some of the harder affixes that were only in tier 9 back down into tier 8, which also royally screwed things up. And the results are not what we hoped for, to say the least. So they basically tried to revert everything back to what it was, or at least a closer proximity to what it was. And they also fixed some things like Nightfall Sanctum where you could get stuck. And oh my God, the Crazed Abominations, we had done those that night. They each one had 50 million hit points. It took us forever to get through them, and there are 3 of them that you have to do in that delve, and it was a nightmare, literally. They fixed those up a little bit, made some muscle fixes with Waxface. But mostly they said, look, guys, we are so sorry. This is not what we intended to do. We're backing these changes up a little bit. Good luck, and we'll see you in the next delve. And so, yeah, my friend and I, we did run some of these on the night right after the hotfixes were released, and it was definitely better. It's still tuned to be more difficult than it was on the first night of the expansion, and I'm fairly certain that that is definitely intentional. Again, we were running tier 7 at about eye level 575 with a Holy Priest and a Fury Warrior, and it was difficult, but doable. Some of the elite mobs still had excess of 40 million hit points, and the final boss had just shy of 100 million hit points. So it was still a bit of a slog, but by the time we got to the end, we felt good about having completed it and not punished, not brutalized from having completed it, which was not the case the night before. So overall, delves are definitely in a better place than they were after the first round of hotfixes. I don't think they're perfect yet, but they are definitely closer to what they should be, thank God. And you can expect even more tuning as we go along, because in fact, they even posted on Sunday morning that they're making an itemization pass right now before the first vault hits tomorrow, and they want to, which will be today, and they want to improve itemization, and they're going to make a full sweep of delve itemization very soon. So there you go, even more tuning tweaks coming. But before I finish this, I do want to put on my designer hat for a little bit and talk about some of their missteps and then some ways in which I think they can go, some directions they can go next to make Delve's experience a little bit better. And these thoughts are born out of conversations with myself and some of my designer friends, so it's not just me saying these things. First of all, the problem that they had with dev scaling is the exact same problem that they had with the open world scaling, which is they released the content underscaled. This means that many people, including yours truly, were able to get through all of their tiers into the tier 8 difficulty on the first night that the season dropped. And that should not have been the case, right? People at item level 565 or 560 should not have been able to progress all the way to tier 8. But now that that cat's out of the bag, we're all, at least we were, playing in tier 8 and being forced to have to go down tiers because they've now got the scaling where they want it is strictly a terrible experience. It's the same way as like people that came along and were going to have difficulty getting to level 70 more so than the previous people were, right? That's a terrible experience. So that was a pretty big misstep in the first place. What they should have done, in retrospective, I think, is on the first night of the season, instead of releasing all the way to tier 11, they should have released tiers 4, 5, and 6, because remember, up until then, we had only been able to progress until tier 3. If they released 4, 5, and 6 on the first week, they could have gathered information about the scaling for that, and then released tiers 7 through 11 the second week, using the information they had gained on scaling to tweak the scaling to make it better for when you got to tiers 7 and 8. That way you wouldn't have had people rushing to tier 8 on the very first night, and you would have been able to get more information on sort of where scaling was, especially after the problems that they had with the open world scaling. They should have recognized that delve scaling was quite likely to need some adjustments after they released. Secondly, I really don't think there need to be 2 gates to delves. Right now, delves are gated by 2 separate mechanics. The first is, of course, the availability of bountiful delves. Remember that you can only have 4 bountiful delves per day. The gear drops from the bountiful delves. That's the delves you want to be running. So that's one of the gates, and I think that's a pretty reasonable gate, actually. I don't mind that one too much because it's similar to Mythic Dungeons having a daily lockout. The goal here is to keep power farmers from farming these things incessantly all day and all night, and only having 4 bountiful delves available per day, 1 for each zone, feels like a pretty reasonable gate. The second gate, however, is the scarcity of the keys that you need to open those bountiful chests. Remember that you can only get those keys, you're only guaranteed keys from the first 4 weekly caches that you get each week. So that's 4 per week. But then after that, you're resorted to farming for key shards at 100 shards in order to get a single key. And some world quests drop key shards. In fact, right now, for each bountiful delve you get a radiant echo, which allows you to do whatever the name of that content is, that allows you to get 25 to 30 shards for that content. So approximately a 25% reduction in key or refund in your key cost for each bountiful delve you do. But I still think that keys are too scarce overall. I don't necessarily be unlimited, but I think just the availability of them needs to be tuned a little bit. And that leads me to my third issue. Right now, after your companion, Bran, reaches level 15, he can only be leveled in bountiful delves. So that means that once you've unlocked tier 8, which many of us did on the first night because they were underscaled, and your Bran reaches level 15, there's literally no reason to go do normal delves anymore, which I think is a miss. So what I think they should do is start dropping key shards from normal delves, maybe 5 to 15 or 20 per delve. So after you've run 4 or 5 normal delves, you've got a key, and that gives you both a reason to run normal delves, which is cool, hey, consuming content, and reduces the scarcity of key shards. And that would be my designer 2 cents worth. Delves are definitely not perfect yet, but they're also better than they were a week ago. And I think they're doable for solo players. Again, you should be warned though that those item level recommendations for the various tiers are now actually legit. So if a tier says you want to be 575, especially if you're like a cloth wearer or someone who's not a DPS spec or a heavy tank spec, you definitely want to be at that item level, maybe even a little higher. Okay, you guys tell me what you think about delves if you've played them so far, what the scaling is like for you, what your experience has been. Are you enjoying them? Are you willing to check them out and give them a try now if you haven't been using them up until now? Let me know in the comments below. I hope you enjoy this new time slot. Let me know what you think about Monday editions versus other time slots. And in the meantime, you guys have a great time. I'll see you in delves soon. Take care.